Hello everyone, and welcome back to Single Scoops. I'm your host JR, and today I'm joined by my friend of over 15 years, cinephile, trumpet player extraordinaire, and host of Cinematic Adventures on YouTube, Eric.
Hello, thank you. That was a very nice intro.
So today we will be discussing the conclusion to Squid Game, the Korean show that took the world by storm in 2021 and slowly fizzled out in seasons 2 and 3.
Yes.
Many chalk this up to the subsequent seasons being cash grabs. This is more an indictment of Netflix than anything, but we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. As always, there will be spoilers, so keep that in mind, but otherwise, let's dig into the plot. Longtime K-drama viewers will know multiple season shows are a rarity in Korean entertainment. Creator Hwang Dong-hyuk has been very vocal that the only reason these extra seasons have been released is due to the incredible success of the first season, and ironically, given the show's content, money. Before we talk about season 3 specifically, we're going to give a quick breakdown on seasons 1 and 2.
The first installment of Squid Game was released on September 17th, 2021. The show introduces Seong Ji-hoon as a down-on-his-luck deadbeat father who is heavily in debt. He is recruited to win some money by a mysterious man and soon finds himself in a battle royale-esque setting. Over the course of the 8-episode season, 456 players fight each other in gruesome competitions inspired by children's games. Halfway through, the group votes on abandoning the games, but soon after, many of them find themselves back in the arena because the near certain death they face outweighs the horror that exists in their lives outside the island. Eventually, Seong Ji-hoon makes it to the final game against his old friend, who kills himself so that Ji-hoon wins.
Upon receiving his win money, he starts tying up some loose ends before being called to speak with the game's originator, who happens to be Player 1, a character that Gi-hoon befriended and thought died during the games. They have discussion about the human condition, and the old man dies in Gi-hoon's presence. Gi-hoon makes his way to the airport to leave and see his daughter in America, but he gets a phone call and realizes he's being tracked by the frontman. He decides to stay and take the games down.
During the course of the show, a cop discovers the games and tries to make his way onto the island. In the last episode, the cop comes across the frontman and discovers that it's his long-lost brother. The frontman shoots the cop, causing him to go over the edge of the cliff. About 3 years later, on December 26, 2024, Season 2 dropped. In this season, Gi-hoon recruits some people to help him take down the games. He builds a small militia and an arsenal of weapons while he tracks down the recruiter. Gi-hoon finally finds the recruiter, and they end up in a game of Russian roulette. Gi-hoon narrowly escapes and soon after strikes up an alliance with the cop. He then gets in contact with the frontman and is allowed back into the games.
Over the next few episodes, Gi-hoon tries to stop the games from within as a player, but fails. He does manage to get some people on his side, including the frontman, who is undercover as a player. The group stages a coup, but ultimately fails, and many die. Gi-hoon is left alive after the frontman reveals himself, and the guilt consumes Gi-hoon, making him lose his purpose. During all of this, the cop is still looking for the island. However, it is also revealed that their boat captain, who has been helping them try to find the island, is working for the frontman and has been trying to sabotage them at every turn.
And finally, Season 3 was released on June 27, 2025. This final installment finds the remaining characters in the aftermath of the failed coup. Gi-hoon has lost all hope, and the people who wanted to abandon the games are mostly dead, leaving the bloodthirsty as the majority. Hide and seek is the next game. The seekers have to kill those in hiding / are looking for exits with keys. Gi-hoon has a vendetta against player 388 because he blames him for not being of use during the coup and makes it his mission to kill him.
Also during this game, one of the players gives birth after breaking her ankle. This is an important note for the next game. And aside from that, there are also a handful of heartbreaking deaths. A side plot that has been going on since Season 2 is that there is a North Korean defector who is one of the pink soldiers. She helps another player escape so he can get back to his daughter. We later learn this is largely driven by the guilt she feels for leaving her daughter behind in North Korea. In the next game, Mechanized Jump Rope, the pregnant player realizes she is unable to play and kills herself. Gi-hoon takes care of the baby and gains a new sense of purpose.
Following the death of multiple players during Jump Rope, there are only a handful of people left, and they want to kill Gi-hoon and the baby because they are easy targets. The frontman gives Gi-hoon an opportunity to kill the remaining players in their sleep and make it out alive with the child, but Gi-hoon ultimately decides against it, opting to go through to the next game and hope for the best. The final game is not really a game at all. The remaining group has to vote who to push off of 3 platforms in succession. At least one person must die per platform within a set limit in order for the next round to start. Obviously, Gi-hoon and the baby are the biggest targets, but player 333 is still in the game, and we know the baby is his child. Though the baby's mother, who is player 222, didn't want anything to do with him, he still wants to protect the baby.
Up until the last minute, that is. Player 333 manages to keep the 3 of them alive up until the last platform, where he realizes that he will die and is willing to give up the child in order to live. Gi-hoon fights him over it, and player 333 dies. Unfortunately, the button to start the round was never pressed, leaving Gi-hoon with the difficult decision of killing himself to save the baby. Before jumping off the platform, he looks right at the VIP's viewing window and says, quote, "Humans are not horses," unquote. While this is happening, the Coast Guard is coming up on the island. As Gi-hoon lays dying on the ground, the evacuation order comes from the frontmen and people start their departure.
The cop makes it to the VIP's viewing room and sees the front man picking up the child. A moment passes and the front man leaves with her. The cop realizes he needs to get out of Dodge and escapes the island. It blows up before anyone can get on. 6 months later, various loose ends are tied up. The cop is given the baby, the front man delivers the rest of the money to Gi-hoon's daughter and tells her he's dead, etc. As the front man drives away, he sees Cate Blanchett playing the recruiting game with a disheveled man on the street. She gives the front man a knowing look, and the show ends.
So that was the plot. We'll talk a little bit about basic information about the show next.
As mentioned before, the show was created, written, and directed by Hwang Dong-hyuk. It did bring in a handful of awards, including for set design and one Critics' Choice Award for Best Foreign Language Series, but overall the consensus is that it was a rehash and unsatisfying. Many people did not enjoy this season. At the end of Season 3, it was teased that Squid Game would be coming to America soon. There's little information on it, but we do know that David Fincher will be the director. And given his past work, this seems right up his alley.
Also, I find it very funny that they have confirmed that Cate Blanchett will not be coming back as the recruiter. So they literally just got her for a whole 30 seconds and then we're like, okay, that's as much as we can pay her.
Yeah, that makes her appearance even more strange.
Yep.
It was strange seeing her for the last 30 seconds of the series, and now knowing that she's not going to be back at all makes it even stranger.
Alrighty. Next, we're going to talk about some notable actors and idols of note. Many of the actors who have appeared in the series have been allegedly involved in criminal activity in their real lives. We're not going to touch on this. It is purely a review of the final season, but I am sure many people are thinking about it while listening to this if they know about the show. We also will not be touching on every actor in the show itself because the cast is absolutely filled to the brim. So, starting off, Lee Jung-jae plays the main character, Sung Gi-hoon. He's known for roles in the movie Il Maire. This actually got an American remake called The Lake House with Keanu Reeves and I believe Sandra Bullock in the 2000s, which is really cool. And also the show Nice to Not Meet You, that came out this past year. Lee Byung-hun plays the frontman. He's well known for I Saw the Devil, but he's also been in a handful of Western movies, including Terminator Genisys and this summer's smash hit K-Pop Demon Hunters. Wee Ha-jun plays the cop. He's been acting for a while, so you may know him from 2017's Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. We actually did a Halloween episode on that in 2022, so if you want to check that out, go for it. It's a really good movie. And more recently, he was in Gyeongsung Creature. Next, I want to mention Yang Dong-gun, or YDG, and he plays Park Young-sik, or Player 7. He started out as a child actor in the 90s before releasing rap albums in the early 2000s. He has continued to act and release the occasional song since then, and you might have seen him in The Bride of Habaek or Cheer Up. Im Siwon plays Lee Myung-gi, or Player 333. He is a former member of the group Children of Empire, or JEA. Even if you don't know the group, you probably know half of the members, as they are all over the industry in other capacities, including acting. He's been acting for as long as he's been singing, actually, with shows like Run On and Misang. Gyu Ri plays Kim Jun-hee, or Player 222. She is a former member of Produce 48's IZ*ONE, and she's also released solo music. Besides Squid Game, she has had one other role in the 2022 show Mimicus. Finally, I want to make an honorable mention for Kang Han-ul, who plays Kang Dae-ho, or Player 388. He's not an idol, but he does occasionally sing on his show's OSTs. This show does not use music like that whatsoever, but I thought I'd mention him here regardless because you might have heard him singing before. He's famous for shows like Heirs and When the Camellia Blooms, and also a little bit of fun trivia is that he was in Missing alongside Im Shi-won. Okay, that was a lot of groundwork, but we got through it. Next, we're going to talk about what we liked. So, Eric, why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, probably the first thing that I noticed about this show, or at least when I'm trying to focus on the positive, and what was probably the most standout positive thing was the acting. I thought the acting was really, really good. It was interesting because one of my first notes for this show was that one of the cop's friend is not a good actor. I thought he was kind of overdoing it. That's kind of a common theme throughout the show, I would say, is that the quality of the acting varies a bit. But I will say that overall it's quite excellent, especially in the more emotional moments where characters have to be crying or they are demanding for, something to go their way. And so I thought that the acting was overall very excellent. The main character, the main actor, I felt like he was almost too good. Like, it was hard for almost any other person to match his level of acting because he was just so good. And the amount of things that he can say just with his face, just with the look, are pretty incredible. Especially when he loses one of his close friends in the failed raid against the management. Yeah. And he's completely distraught. He's completely beside himself. That was excellent acting. And I think his strength in particular is communicating without words. He did that a lot in season 1, much more so in seasons 2 and 3, which is a whole other thing as to like why he didn't have as many lines. But anyway,
right?
Yeah, so I thought the acting was one of the best parts of it, and even when characters were wearing masks, like that's a whole other aspect of good acting because an actor's tool is their face. Right. So when you cover up the face, now the question becomes, okay, well, how am I going to communicate this particular emotion? So, I mean, I give some credit to the camera work and I give credit to the directing, which, of course is a big part of the acting communicating itself. But when you put a mask on, it's a whole other challenge. And a lot of the actors really did quite well communicating certain emotions, even with that barrier.
Not just the mask, but the soldiers in particular also have voice modulators on. So that is another added layer of like, how do you express yourself in a way that translates through the screen, I think. And also touching just on the character that you're talking about, Ki-hoon's friend that like overacts. I feel like that is a touchstone of K-dramas that made its way into this show, because really this show isn't a K-drama, I would say. That to me is not surprising because I've been watching K-dramas for 10 years, but I completely understand why it stood out to you.
I wondered about that actually. As I was watching the show, I was like, perhaps it's a cultural thing, or maybe not even a cultural thing. Like all Korean movies are overacted, but perhaps it's just like a K-drama thing. Because especially like, I forget who specifically the character was, but the guy who helps the North Korean defector find her or locate her child, it's at the very end of the series. He in particular, because what he's saying, the translated line was, let me know if you need anything. But like if I were saying that in English in the same inflection he was, it'd be like, let me know if you need anything. Like he was so, to me, it was like so over the top. But it's like, well, I mean, they hired him. So like, I guess this is the way it's supposed to be done. But it's still hard for me to kind of reconcile that because some of the actors most of the actors had such incredible subtleties to what they were communicating with their face that to me, it kind of came across as like the actors were almost like trying to make a name for themselves. Like they were almost trying to be like, notice me, Yeah. But that is a good point.
I will say that in the first season, the translation was way worse.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think they took fan feedback and also Korean speakers' feedback into account, and they did a much better job with translation this time around. I do remember the first season just being like, that's a weird way to translate that. That's an odd way to say that right there. I'm not fluent by any means, but I know enough to be able to detect when the localization goes wrong.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a factor. I would rather deal with bad English translation than English dubs.
Yes,
so
I agree.
I ain't going there.
Just finally, to kind of put a cap on the acting, I've been a fan of Im Shi-won in particular. I really love a lot of the actors in this show. Park Gyu Ri is another one. She's the woman that plays the Pink Soldier. And I just want to say that Im Shi-won was really good. He didn't really have much of a character arc. If anything, he got worse over the course of the show. But
And which one was that again?
So he's the crypto bro.
Oh, okay,
the dad
yes.
of the baby and all that. With a show like this where there's numbers involved and names involved, it's hard to keep them straight.
Yes,
you know?
especially for someone like me who I really appreciate Korean cinema, but with Korean TV shows and especially like understanding the general cadence of Korean names, I'm completely new to that. So
That's fair, yeah. But yeah, I think his final betrayal, as soon as the one guy just like, he was like, I'm not going to be your lunchbox, and he literally kills himself, I saw where it was going. And I think that the emotion he was able to convey in that scene where he's like completely lost his mind and is willing to give his own child up, that was very powerful to me. I thought he did a really great job in that scene, and it was pretty hard hitting in my opinion.
I just ultimately didn't really know where the writers were taking it with him, because at first you felt sorry for him because of the way that the mother was treating him. I mean, you could kind of see it from both sides, of course. You know, for him to put her in that situation, but for her to be so vitriolic, like not even giving him an inch, it was kind of like, all right, well, maybe you can, team up a little bit. But towards the end, it seemed like, okay, now they're establishing him as like the responsible one, which is fair. Like he was kind of the smart one all along. But his actions towards the end, while they were powerful, they seemed a bit extreme to me.
I saw it as he has always been looking out for number one, and this was just a final cherry on top of that cake. He did that in his real life with the crypto business and scamming all the people. He did that when his girlfriend got pregnant, and in his final moments, he does that with his own child. Like, that was kind of the arc I saw for him over the course of the show.
I guess. I felt like they didn't lean into that part enough. I felt like they were more so leaning into, he was almost like a victim, not innocent, but a victim nonetheless. And so you kind of were like rooting for him and wanting him to have a happy ending. So for him to like, hanging his own child over it almost felt to me like Anakin choking Padme in episode 3.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, the whole purpose of why you turn to the dark side is for Padme. I don't care how mad you are.
Yeah.
Why are you force choking her right now?
So funny.
Yeah, so the acting, I would say, was like 90 to 95% amazing. Another thing I really liked was the music, mostly. I feel like the music is kind of a underappreciated aspect of Squid Game. A lot of people don't talk about the music because, understandably so, I guess. A lot of people are entirely focused on the games and the craziness and novelty of the games. But I feel like the music was really good, especially that darn piano theme.
Yes.
That always comes in whenever it's like an especially heartbreaking moment. That is devastating. I remember the first time I heard it in season 1 during the marble game. Like, I went to bed, I was like depressed. Like, not just of course because of the episode itself and the betrayal, but the theme just like haunted my dreams. I think it's really smart to hold a baseline tone, but then just continually going down from that tone. Usually when people are trying to write something sad, they just kind of like walk down a musical staircase, but to hold a tone at the top and then to just keep going down with subsequent notes, I thought that was really ingenious on the composer's part. Also, as a trumpet player, I appreciate the fact that Haydn's trumpet concerto is being played and exposed to a whole generation of kids, despite the fact that it's kind of like a, brutal setting. Yeah. At least it might turn some youngins on to the trumpet. In fact, I think I even heard that where like now that piece is known as the Squid Game trumpet piece. So it's like, well, maybe not the best intro for it, but if that's how you figure it out, then that's how you figure it out. So.
That's funny. I feel like season 3 didn't really have a kid's song. The first season had its kid's song that like kind of stood out to everyone. And then the second season had the song for the merry-go-round. Yeah. But I feel like this one didn't really have that. And if it did, it wasn't memorable enough to me.
I agree. I don't recall any kind of kid's song, which I think is, like the music, an underappreciated detail for adding to the terror of the games. Because, like, it's already kind of terrifying, this contrast of playing kids' games when if you lose, you die. I guess like, well, maybe the American remake will have like strictly American kids games like hopscotch.
Right.
That'd be interesting, you know. And so like imagine playing hopscotch, but if you lose, you die, you know. Because like to American viewers, like we've never, I mean, maybe not never, but we typically don't know these like standard Korean game, like Squid Game, you know. Yeah. So for them, it's like extra terrifying to play, you know, something you would play as a child. Mm-hmm. So that's why it almost felt like it took 5 episodes in season 2 for it to feel like Squid Game to me. Yes. Because it was like, okay, now we're on this merry-go-round. It has this creepy kid song, and like people actually look worried. Mm-hmm. I'm getting ahead of myself. But one thing I didn't really like was how casual people were. When they would play these games, it seemed like they were very concerned about strategy, which of course they should be, but no one ever really looked like terrified. Yeah. No one had that look of like, you know, if I make one little mistake, I am dead. Mm-hmm. But then in in episode 5 of season 2, they actually did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There were a few choices that I was pretty baffled by, particularly the game where they all had their ankles linked together.
The 6-legged race?
Yeah, the six legs is what it's called. The song choices were like, I don't know, just kind of frivolous, it felt, and very like jovial and happy. And they would even play the music as the characters were getting shot dead. Yeah. So it was just an interesting choice to me. And even at the very last episode, or maybe not the very last, but I think the second to last maybe, when they had like a rock song playing, it just didn't seem to fit. The part of Squid Game with the music that I do appreciate is the original kind of like creepy, slightly off-center music that they have used throughout the show. So the music was pretty good, mostly.
Seasons 2 and 3 were filmed subsequently, and I do wonder if that was at its detriment, because in general, I don't think there was enough time given to the story. It could have been workshopped quite a bit, in my opinion, because when you hear Hwang Dong-hyuk talking about season 1, he had that written for a decade before it got picked up by anyone. And you can tell that it went through revisions. You could tell that he really thought about every little detail. And I think that's why it did so well the first season. But you get to seasons 2 and 3 and you're just like, we're picking out these little parts of it. We're just like, why did they do that there? They didn't have time to workshop it, in my opinion.
I agree. It's funny because the stakes were the same. You know, if you lose, you die. And if you win, you get, 46 billion won. Mm-hmm. But I just didn't have that urge to watch the next episode. Yep. When I watched season 1, I remember I watched 4 episodes in one night. I would have watched more if it hadn't been, like midnight. Yeah. But I had that classic Netflix urge to binge it. But in seasons 2 and 3, I didn't have that. Yep. Not ever. So the music was great, mostly. Another thing I really liked, and this was true throughout all 3 seasons, was the set design. There were plenty of times when I felt just like the characters, at least to the extent whenever they walked in somewhere, they were like, whoa, I might die, but this is impressive. Mm-hmm. Especially the hide and seek one. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really cool. And the final game, even though the CGI was not the best, I thought was really like jaw-dropping. Yeah. It almost felt like it was out of like a Christopher Nolan movie or something. But yeah, the set designs are beautiful. They're impressive, even if it is CGI or if it's practical effects. Regardless, it's very pleasing to look at. I really liked the symbolic use of color. Yes. Like when the main character is leading that rebellion and they get to the management and it's all purple, purple being the color of royalty. I thought, oh, nice little touch there. So yeah, the set designs are amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was watching this with my younger sister, and she was pointing out to me, she was like, what is written on the dorm walls? And I was like, I wondered that too. Hoodie. It says hoodie. And she's like, no, that's not what it says. And after the show ended, she looked it up, and it's Latin for today it's me, tomorrow it's you. Yeah. And I thought that was a very clever touch. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice those giant letters, and I was like, what is that? Like, what is that even saying? But I never thought to look into it.
Yeah. And I do think that one of the show's strengths in coming back is that it had such an iconic setting. And I kind of wish that they built a little more out of it just to make it a little fresher. Because even in the new games, it was still samey, in my opinion, you know, everything. And I get it. It has the children's aesthetic and they want to stay true to that. But the first season had such wow factor that I don't think was really accomplished after the fact. I don't know if it's just because it was such a novel idea in the first season that even if you redo it in other games, it just kind of like loses a bit of its luster.
Yeah, I think they were more so... It felt like in seasons 2 and 3 with the games, they were more so focused on how can we give it a little twist.
Yeah.
You know, like with the hide and seek game. It's like,
right.
Okay, well, we're going to play hide and seek.
Yeah.
But how can we make it interesting? And I think they did well with that one. I think the general consensus is that the hide and seek was the best game. So it's like, all right, let's give the seekers knives. The hiders can escape, but they need different shapes keys.
Right.
Like, I thought that was pretty clever. Also, I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks this, but like when they got to the jump rope game, it was the first time in all of the episodes I watched in Squid Game where I was like, well, I could easily do that. like I would win. And then I did notice like, okay, they made it a little interesting, little gap. Okay, that would throw in. But to me, it was like, well, I mean, all you got to do is jump.
Yeah.
Like it didn't seem like there was much peril.
Right.
You know?
Especially since it started out pretty slow and it didn't speed up till the end. And by the end, there's only like a handful of people left. And it's like, you don't care about those characters.
Yeah.
Who cares if it's going faster now?
I guess like the one thing is that if you were older,
right,
because it takes a lot of stamina,
right,
you'd probably be kind of scared.
That is true. One thing I will point out is I think all of those games that were elevated much higher. I feel like in the first season, there was the one game where they had to jump on the glass squares. And also Tug of War, I believe. They were on high platforms, but I think they made them much higher this time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
At least that's what it seemed like to me. I could be wrong. But that was something that stood out to me.
There were a few moments in the very last game where I was a bit confused as to how high up they were, because it could have just been a like perspective thing, because some of the way the camera was aimed, I was like, well, they don't seem too high up at this point. But then it would like zoom out and like, oh, okay, it's extremely high up.
Agreed.
So set design, beautiful. And then another thing I really liked was the variety of character personalities and their backgrounds. This works in the show's favor, but it also works, I would say, to its detriment to a certain extent, because you can definitely overdo it. You can give the show such variety that there's no cohesion, which is very difficult to do. I mean, you have your crypto bros, your mother and son, you have junkies, you've got like the straight man, quote unquote, you have the shaman. Again, I think like it's kind of interesting how they made the characters much zanier than in season 1. In season 1, they just kind of they were just like different personalities, but in season 2 and 3, they were just like completely different people.
Right.
Very different people. And that can be interesting because it creates for different dynamics and it creates for different scenarios and you know, different directions the show can go. But it also laid the groundwork for probably the biggest problem I had with the show, which is tons of exposition that was really forced. And this is nitpicky, but a bunch of characters, just like hundreds of people standing in complete silence, listening to these two focused characters give exposition.
Yep.
And part of the problem, I think, is the actual show itself. Like if your entire show is built around a game show, where are you going to find moments for exposition to make sense?
Right.
And they do find moments for exposition to make sense, like when the front man is actually playing, and then he sits down with the lead character and he talks about how he has to save his family. I think that moment of exposition makes sense because we've already had a few episodes to establish the relationship and the context. And it's a very emotional moment anyway. But when the son comes across his mother, says, "Mom, what are you doing here?"
I know.
And they start like yelling back and forth. It's so clunky.
Yeah.
And again, like everyone is acting like they're riveted on this specific conversation.
Yeah.
You know, it might have actually even been better if there was like some ambient noise of just conversation going around.
Yeah.
That might have added a layer of realism.
Yeah.
But overall, it was charming. I was a bit of a Thanos fan, I'm not going to lie. He was just fun in a really obnoxious way.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to see him get a bit farther because he was just so entertaining. Actually, I was going to say he was like the Joker of the series, but I felt like the Joker of the series was the recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see more of the recruiter. Mm-hmm. I loved especially when he was playing Russian roulette and he actually points the gun at himself and he clicks and he just like kind of whistles like, "Woo, like I could have just died right there." Yeah. Like he's such a fun, like doesn't care personality, which makes him to be really evil and scary because these two men are like tied up and they're crying and shaking and he's just like having the time of his life. Yeah. And so then when he started to give like the obligatory backstory of like shooting his father, I'm like, don't just stop. Like I don't want to know. So it was a shame that they kind of got rid of him. He could have been a lot of fun.
I think that part of the problem with seasons 2 and 3, one, it's again one story. It's not contained like season 1 was. So when you think about it, it's even more frustrating, I think, that there is so much exposition because it's like, okay, there were 7 episodes in season 2. There were 6 episodes in season 3. That is more than enough time to give flashbacks and actually show rather than tell what is going on in the story. And because they didn't do that, we get all this exposition. And I just think that it again goes back to they did not have enough time to work on the script. And it's so annoying that that was the case because I think obviously waiting another 10 years would be ridiculous. By the time that came out, nobody would have cared. But 2021 to 2024, 3 years, you have to count, pre-production, post-production in that. There's not a lot of time for writing. And if you look at the writing credits, Hwang Dong-hyuk wrote and directed every single episode. So he was just really grinding, which I commend to a certain degree. But maybe he should have taken a step back from directing a few episodes, or he should have, had a co-writer for certain episodes. I think that would have benefited him in the long run.
The lack of preparation, I think, was especially apparent in the last 2 episodes of the series. We'll get into that.
Yes, we will. Okay, so we discussed all the things we liked about the show, which ironically had a lot of dislikes embedded.
They're close friends. Closely
tied. So now we're going to talk about specific dislikes. You said you didn't like the jump rope game. I actually did like it.
It's not that I disliked it. I guess I just thought... I think they made it entertaining enough, and I liked the little twist of the guy, like, mercilessly pushing people off at the end.
Same.
And I also was like, how is 222 going to get across? That was really good. But the game itself was the first time in me watching the show where I'm like, that's easy.
Yeah.
Like, I can do that.
That's fair. So. That is fair. In general, I felt like the games are kind of mid. Again, I was just so disillusioned by the last season that by the time we came to this one, I was just like, I don't really care. This is not... It didn't scratch the itch that the first season gave you, where you were like, whoa, the stakes are high. None of the stakes ever felt high to me. I think that was the problem. In all of the games, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Like, in season 1, the games had a very inherent peril to them, and they were also... interesting because, especially for American audiences, you had never heard of these games, like the cookie one. Yeah. Having to cut out a triangle or an umbrella or whatever. That was a good game because it wasn't very kinetic, but there was a lot of tension.
Exactly.
But even in the game where I said it finally felt like Squid Game, the merry-go-round. Yes. It was just like, okay, group up. Go in the door, so it's not very exciting. I think they did the best they could to make it exciting, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And in that same vein, I thought the final quote unquote game was a complete cop out because one, it was not a game. Voting is not a game. And I also felt like it was a cop-out in the sense that they were like, if we have women on the platform, they're just going to push the women off first. So they're like, we're not even going to add them in. It was kind of annoying to be like, okay, there's all these women that you have just, most of them killed themselves. Like,
it's true.
I thought it was kind of,
That's interesting. I never even thought about that factor, but you might be right.
Yeah, I don't know what the intention in that was. I did find it funny that all the men were being cowards about who has to push it. But what if I get pushed off too? Like,
yeah, to have this sort of like jury discussion as the final game was, I will admit, it's kind of lame. They couldn't necessarily top the drama of the first season's final game, but they could at least match it, I think.
Yeah, especially with the fact that the frontman, I don't remember who exactly told them that they didn't actually have to go through with the final game. They could have just ended it there. I was expecting something with much more spectacle because they could have gotten out easy. It felt like they were getting off easy. Had it gone to their plan of, we're going to only throw one person off of each platform, blah, blah, blah. It just felt like a letdown, given the fact that they were all like, but we could have one more game. And it's not even a game.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I touched on lots of clunky exposition. It was pretty relentless, and I thought it was especially amusing whenever it would happen literally in the middle of a life and death situation. I felt like it happened a lot when the characters were trying to negotiate their own life. They would say something to the extent of, I too am a father, like I have kids, or they'll just say like, do you even know why I'm in here? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, we weren't wondering that, but you're going to say it anyway, I guess. I can more understand it when they're actually like begging for their life. That makes sense. Like that's earned. But I felt like there were a lot of times where, like the old lady especially, like she would be talking to player 222, and there was a lot of like, she did a lot of that kind of exposition and talking to the main character, like, I forget the exact thing she said, but just a lot of information dumping that is trying to build up the drama. And again, I don't really know how you organically develop characters in this particular scenario, but that could just be one of the inherent flaws of the show.
I think the other problem with having so much time devoted to voting is that we all know it's not going to happen, so why are we watching it in every single episode?
Yes, the voting was getting really redundant.
Yeah.
And especially because they used the same piece of music for every voting scene. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't help it make it any more exciting.
Because in the first season, it was like, we can vote, okay, and everyone votes to get out. And it's like, wow, that actually held some weight. Holds absolutely no weight in this season.
The main character kind of already sort of like slithered his way back. Like, if they were to vote to end the games, what would he even, like, how would that progress? Yeah. It's almost like inconceivable. So... The VIPs. Okay, well, I think I'm not alone in this. I'm pretty sure that anybody who realized that the VIPs were back let out a collective groan. This is just baffling to me. Like, seriously, I feel as if even if you're in Hollywood, if you're like a big shot writer, surely you have some kind of bead on like what the public thinks. And so I was thinking, like, don't they know how everyone felt about the VIPs last season? Their solution was to bring them in a different set of VIPs and give them even more screen time. They don't contribute anything. The dialogue is so bad. I remember one line in particular made me almost like slam my computer shut, was when the VIP was like, this is a bigger plot twist than the resurrection of Jesus.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, I legitimately feel bad for this actor that he had to say that line. And then another particularly egregious one was, I think like the long-haired bro VIP was like, well, you know what they say, God created mothers because he couldn't be everywhere at once. Let's see what 222 does. Oh. I was like, you don't deserve to be a screenwriter. That is unacceptable.
Hilarious.
And I really try to give them the benefit of the doubt here. Like, maybe they're trying to make the VIPs come across as cringy because they are ultra rich, out of touch psychopaths, every one of them. So maybe they're actually leaning into how unlikable they are. But the contrast between the quality of acting and the line delivery of the VIPs and everybody else, and the fact that the VIPs don't contribute anything, makes me think that they're just kind of blind to this. It would have been really cool if we had actually gotten more info on the VIPs. Yeah. Because I feel like the VIPs, in a way, are almost, well, they're not like, I'm not going to say they're the crux of the show, but the game was built for them.
Right.
So, like, if the game is made for them, let's dig a little bit more into them. I mean, I know I just spent time, like, shredding them apart, but, like, I feel like they are almost the key to, like, the intrigue of the game. Like, who are they, you know? So, I don't know. That could be a whole other tangent. But for the most part, actually, for all the part, the VIPs were horrendous.
I was thinking about, like, how the show could have been better. And one of my conclusions was it would have been really interesting. I don't think Gi-hoon himself would have been good for this, but I was thinking maybe he could have created a VIP and have the VIP infiltrate the game in that regard, because, you know, he's already in the game. We don't care. We've seen him do this once before. But it would have been interesting to see maybe the VIP start to crumble in some way, because again, there's no real difference in how that works from season 1 to season 2 to season 3. We just see them drink and say horrible lines at their little window. Like, I wanted something a little more from it, you know? And Gi-hoon has the resources. Not only does he have the money, but he also has resources underground. I think he could have very easily created a VIP and sent them in that way. Yeah, it was just tiring. Every time they came on the screen, I was just like, oh, we gotta listen to them now. I was trying to remember, though, were they the ones that recommended putting the baby in the game? Or was it the frontman who ultimately decided that?
I feel like it was the frontman, although I don't know. I don't remember. It could have been the VIPs. It could
ultimately it doesn't matter because it could have just been the frontman and we don't need anything more from the VIPs, you know? Like, it's easily explained away.
And I was still trying to give them the benefit of the doubt by saying, well, when the front man speaks in English, it sounds just as robotic. But that is his second language.
Yes.
The VIPs, presumably, are native English speakers. So they have no excuse.
It's funny. I'm reminded of when we talked about Squid Game in 2021 when the first season came out. And you were telling me, like, this is bad. And I was like, oh, you don't even know. Because for some reason, I don't know why this is the case, but there are maybe 2 Western actors who regularly show up in Korean shows that actually can act. And none of them were present here. It's not uncommon for Korean shows to cast Westerners that cannot act. Sometimes there's Russians. I'll throw that in there. None of these people were Russian, but they do occasionally cast Russians as well. It makes me think of how in K-pop they add random English into songs to make it more global. And I do wonder if it was like, oh, these English speakers will connect to the English audience. That's not how that works. I don't know if that was their thought process, but like you said, how do they not know that everybody hates the VIPs?
That's a very good point. I actually sort of thought that a little bit myself, not to the precise extent that you are referring, but it was more so like, I wonder if the way the Korean language is spoken combined with maybe some aspects of Korean culture or the Korean tradition of acting, or maybe since the director is Korean, he has an idea of how Americans act. And so he directed the VIPs as such. In the same way that I think Americans have a very, like, erroneous perception that Asian people are, like, very self-contained and extremely, like, stoic, which, I mean, they are, but in the way that, like, anybody could be.
Yeah.
It's
caricatures.
Caricatures. It's not like every Asian is that way. Like, Asians have...
They're not a monolith.
Yeah, they have, like, huge varieties of personalities as they do, you know, in America or anywhere. So I think, like, That could have been a factor. I really don't know. Whatever the factor was, it didn't work.
Agreed. Okay, another thing I did not like was teasing Squid Game America. Now, initially, I said I would not be watching. However, upon learning that David Fincher is directing it...
That's crazy.
Shocking. Ironically, we have mentioned David Fincher on this show before.
If David Fincher directs, I just might check it out because it's going to be a very dark, even more depressing take on Squid Game.
Yep. Because, he's done Seven, he's done Fight Club, he's done just a whole slew of really highly acclaimed media.
But his consistent style is like this steely, gray, like hard reality type movies. So that will be interesting to see how he is going to implement that into such a colorful show like Squid Game.
Yeah. We can talk a little bit about Squid Game America later on, but in general, I do think it's going to be difficult. I don't know. I think they have a hard road ahead of them in recreating this. Although it's not a remake in the sense that they're going to take the first season and recreate it, because they introduced Squid Game America at the end of Squid Game Season 3, meaning that it's just in the same universe. So hopefully it won't be bad. Because they're not doing that. In a first draft of this script, I actually had mentioned remakes of Korean shows and movies is not uncommon in America. People just don't know it. Like I mentioned, The Lake House, my parents watched that when it came out, and they had no clue it was a Korean movie. The Good Doctor, I'm sure a lot of people, unless they're, avid fans of it, they don't know that that was originally a Korean show.
I did not know that.
There you go. It's not uncommon. However, when it happens in the way that Squid Game happened, in that it's a huge phenomena, it makes me pause, because everything's for money, obviously. But in my opinion, this sounded like a cash grab at the very beginning. If they're actually bringing in people who know what they're doing and care about the content they're making, I will be willing to retract my statement in the future, if that's the case. But we will see.
Absolutely. So the next objections that I have are starting to kind of get into the nitpicky territory, but I feel like they are legitimate anyway. The digital baby. So I understand that, working with an actual infant can pose problems, but why couldn't you just get a baby? It can obviously be done, in Breaking Bad. Mm-hmm. And then you name it. You can have an actual baby. I guess perhaps it would have been tricky to have a real baby with certain scenes, but I can't really think of a scene that would have been impossible.
Right. Because so many of the scenes with the baby, Gi-hoon is holding the child up against his chest. You can't even see it. Yeah, exactly. I did read that it was part animatronic.
That makes it even worse.
I know.
Animatronic.
I'm gonna fact check that and put a source in the script if that is true.
That'd be that brings it to a whole different level. That is hilarious.
I think that Netflix is really leaning into stuff like that, because my sister and I were watching Stranger Things Season 5, and they deep-faked a young Will Byers, and it was the most uncanny valley thing I have ever seen.
I still haven't figured out that technology.
Nope. Yeah, I was not a fan of the digital baby.
I would have been a fan of an animatronic baby. That sounds hilarious. Another nitpicky thing was episode cutoffs. Now, I, of course, like a good cliffhanger as much as the next guy. But I felt like a lot of the episodes cut off mid-scene. I think a good cliffhanger you cut off at the end of a story beat. Yeah. But the one in particular that made me really mad was when Thanos gets stabbed with a fork. Then the episode's over. Yeah. I'm like, what? That was the middle of the action. Keep it going, Yeah. Maybe, if the episode cut off when the fight was over, that would have been perfect. But to cut off right when he's stabbed with the fork, it's you released all the episodes in one day. Yep. Where's the drama? And just people are just going to click. People are just going to be annoyed and then click next episode, So it was a small thing, but I noticed it enough for it to bother me.
There needs to be a change in my opinion, in how streaming shows that do come out in one day, they can't think like serialized shows because, like you said, you're just going to click to the next one. So you can have a neater episode end. You don't have to put a cliffhanger on a show that drops all of its episodes in one day. So yeah, I would completely agree with that. So my final dislike is that nothing was accomplished.
This is a good, legitimate dislike because this is like the foundation of the show, you know? So this is good.
Gi-hun wants to have a coup. He tries, he fails, and nothing else he does actually brings any consequences to the game runners. Maybe he kills a few pink soldiers, but they're expendable anyway. It's so frustrating to spend 13 hours of your life watching nothing happen. Another thing was the cop is literally running around for the entirety of the 2 seasons, and he does nothing too. He doesn't find anything. He doesn't uncover anything. And then, in the last half hour of the final episode, they're tying up loose ends from season 1 as if people care, as if people remember. I was sitting there telling my sister, I was like, who is this guy? Why are they doing this right now? Oh, he was the girl's brother, and we're supposed to remember him.
Okay, so when I was watching that scene at the airport, right, I literally said out loud, who are these people? I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I was sitting there and I was like, who are, like, am I dumb? Did I miss something? Nope. I literally had no idea who they were. Yeah.
They literally could have left that out entirely and just shown Gi-hun's daughter and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Why they added those extra 3 minutes, I don't know. But
you bring up such a great point about the cop. That did not occur to me until just now. How the cop, literally, his entire character was for nothing.
Yep.
Because as soon as he gets to the island, he boats away.
Exactly. And it's like, you made this whole character mythology about these 2 brothers, and they've been separated. And then they find each other, and then nothing happens.
Yeah, I thought maybe they would have taken like a really dramatic story beat and have him shoot the front man, like while he's holding the baby, you know? Because that would have been pretty daring.
But it's just, he was just so useless, and either kill him on the cliff in the first season or give him something to do. Even the guy that you didn't like very much, his acting, he did more than the cop did. Yeah. He actually ended up going to prison for what he did. He had, meaning to his character.
He uncovered the captain's dirty little secret.
Yeah, even that scene was like, okay.
Yeah.
Great. They found out that the captain is bad.
And the big payoff being that the baby won.
Yeah.
I guess it's like, all right, I mean, that's definitely like unexpected, but there was just something that was nagging me, like, there has got to be a better way to end the games here. And I felt like even if they were going to commit to something as dramatic as killing the main character, I actually feel like they didn't make it dramatic enough from like a craft perspective. Like, they did the final line, the last words, which was cool. The slow motion fall. I felt like they could have had a better camera angle as he was falling. Or maybe they could have like followed his eyes while he was falling. It was weird because I felt like it wasn't dramatic enough, even though it's as dramatic as the main character dying.
And I think the other reason that it didn't have much impact is because while humans are not horses, like, I get why Hwang Dong-hyuk had him say that to like kind of finish everything, put a little bow on everything. The VIPs don't care. Yeah. The VIPs can't even understand him. They don't speak Korean. It holds no weight. And he just looked at him, said something, jumped off. Like, what do they care? They don't care. Nobody cares.
See, I wasn't even thinking of the VIPs. I thought he was directing it exclusively to the front man.
That could be.
I'm sure the writers intended for him to be saying it to the VIPs, in which case, yes, they don't they don't care. They don't understand Korean either. So.
And they never showed, like, a translator in the scenes either, which that could have gotten annoying to a certain degree to have someone, like, sitting there whispering in English the whole time.
Oh, I think they could have easily solved that. Just put screens in front of the VIPs.
That would have worked.
Live translation. I mean, they certainly have enough money.
Right.
The characters in the show have enough money. They could create that technology.
Yeah. Just lackluster is the word I keep coming back to.
Yep. So, lastly, I would say is all of the players being so jovial in the face of almost certain death. Mm-hmm. This one is a legitimate complaint for me, but I can also understand why it might be difficult to ask your actors to be afraid the entire time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, why would you not be afraid the entire time? I do realize that the people that the makers of Squid Game and the recruiter, they prey on the sort of scum of the earth.
Yeah.
Where, like, these are not good people, and therefore they don't really have much intelligence, emotional intelligence.
Right.
So maybe they don't even understand, like, the weight of what's going on. Mm-hmm. It can be forgiven at the beginning because no one has told them that if you lose the game, you die. But after that, I feel like they should all be, like, a mess whenever they enter into a game. Mm-hmm. They don't have to be in a state of constant panic when they're in the dorm or whatever they call it. But when they actually enter into a game, it's just a little thing that takes me out of the show to see them, like, talking as if they're on, like, Family Feud or something. You know, it's like, and I feel like they did kind of get around that in a clever way with the pills.
Yes.
You know, Thanos,
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, Thanos and his little sidekicks, you know, getting high before, like, I thought that was a good way around that particular complaint, but it still annoyed me whenever all the characters would be like, okay, like, so how should we win? It was like they were about to play, like, Sharks and Minnows, you know, at camp or something. Like, okay, what should we do? You know, which, by the way, if they did Sharks and Minnows and the American remake, that could be kind of cool.
Oh, yes.
Maybe getting some live animals involved, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree that it was a nice reprieve from all the people who are just like, I'm gonna kill you, to have, especially the character of Minsu. At the end, he's just, like, fully losing his mind, coupled with the trauma of everything happening and the drugs, and also kind of withdrawing from the drugs. And I'm a fan of the actor who plays Minsu. His name's E. David. And I thought that he did a pretty good job in that role. Mm-hmm. Just throwing this out there. I feel like I've talked about Hotel de Luna like 7,000 times on this show, but he's in that. Highly recommend. That one's horror, but it's more campy horror. So, in a similar vein, but kind of a little bit.
Nice.
So, was that your final dislike?
That was my final one.
Very nice. Alrighty. So, a lot of times on this show, when we have watched a bad movie or a bad K-drama, we suggest what to watch instead. And that is either by the actors who are in the show and or similar genres and themes in other shows. So first off, I'm going to talk about the actors because this show is full of great actors. And I'm going to do these rapid fire and not talk about them too in depth. For Lee Byung-hun, I would recommend Mr. Sunshine. It's a period piece, but it's really cool in that it is between Joseon and modern day Korea. So it's a really cool melding of traditional Korean dress and contemporary clothes for that time. So it's visually really beautiful, but the writing, the costuming, the music, and the set's gorgeous. And he is a fantastic actor in that one. I think he did fine in this show, but I don't think he was given enough to do spectacularly. So that is one for him. Also, we've talked about K-Pop Demon Hunters at multiple points. Watch K-Pop Demon Hunters. He is the big bad in that. Next, Im Shi-won. The show I mentioned earlier, Run On. Highly recommend. It's a rom-com, so very different genre, but he's very sweet in it, and it's a fun watch. He's also in a show called Strangers from Hell, or Hell is Other People. And I have never watched it because I tried watching it and it was very scary. But I have heard incredible things about it. I've heard so many people say it's really good. And he's the main character in that one. So
The only Korean media I've consumed are Oscar-winning movies and Squid Game. So the idea of a Korean rom-com is crazy to me.
That is so funny.
But I am definitely curious.
Mm-hmm. Next, I want to talk about Kang Ha-neul. I also mentioned this one earlier. It is actually a murder mystery, and that is When the Camellia Blooms. This was his first show after being discharged from the military, and it was another sweet watch, despite some of the darker themes, because it gets pretty dark pretty quickly. But he is a really good actor. I honestly don't think that this show did him justice, so I recommend that one. Also, I talked about Heirs earlier. That one's just a classic, so if you're looking for some light teen drama, that one's good. I also want to mention one last actor in the show quickly, and that is Park Gyu Young. She is one of my favorite actors. Really love her. She's been acting since 2016, I want to say. She's been in a whole slew of genres, and one that kind of is similar to Squid Game, though not really because it's more supernatural, is Sweet Home. It's based on a webtoon that I read, and the webtoon was fantastic. Sweet Home actually has multiple seasons. I haven't seen them all. Another Netflix show, I believe. Netflix loves their multi-season long things. But
more money.
Yeah, more money. And that one is also weird because it was a one-season webtoon. So the subsequent seasons, I believe, were just completely the machinations of whoever wrote it after the fact. But again, she's really great. Love her. She's been in a ton of things. So really pick anything and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Finally, a show in a similar genre / has similar themes, though not really, is The Glory. And I'm choosing this one because Squid Game's end was not satisfying. And I want to recommend a show that is very satisfying, though, like I said, it's not exactly in the same genre as this. It's more of a thriller, and that is The Glory. It's about a woman who was very, very severely bullied as a teen, and in her adult life, she seeks revenge on the perpetrators that made her life a living hell during that time. And again, it's not a battle royale or anything, and it's definitely not as gruesome, but there are some very heavy, heavy parts of that show, very heartbreaking at times. And the discussion of human worth and consequences that come from treating people in certain ways, I think, is really great. It also talks about classism, so that is another part of it that is similar. I would 100% recommend it over the last 2 seasons of Squid Game.
Okay.
It is a really, really good show. The main actress in that show, Song Hye-kyo, she is a superstar. Fire, yes.
Nice.
So good. It is much better written than Squid Game. Probably spend about the same time watching Squid Game as The Glory, so a better use of your time.
Well, I know what my next watch is.
Yes, I would recommend it.
Yeah, that sounds really good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, Squid Game had a very solid start, but unfortunately ended on a fizzle. If anyone does want to watch it, the first season is the most concise, and you don't really need to watch past that. So if you're trying to recommend the show to anybody, you can just say, you know what? You can just watch the first season, enjoy it. And if you are looking for any kind of satisfying resolution, you're not going to get it in seasons 2 or 3. So just stick with season 1. You've got plenty of story, plenty of drama, enough satisfaction in that one.
Honestly, you can just stop watching Squid Game season 1 as he's about to walk onto the plane. Don't watch past that.
So if any of you guys want to make fan edits out there, just cut out the part when he's at the airport, and you'll have a great show. It's like
show. The machete order for...
Yeah. We're coming up with the machete Squid Game order.
Hilarious. Okay, Eric, I want to thank you again for joining me on this episode. This is actually a momentous occasion. This is the first ever Single Scoops / K-Pop Sundae podcast episode that has been recorded in person.
Been an honor to be that person, and thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed having you on. His YouTube channel will be linked in the description, so make sure to check that out. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, then please make sure to rate, subscribe, follow, and tell your friends about us. If you want to interact with us or just see more of our content, then you can follow the links in the description to our website and social media platforms. More Single Scoops are coming your way soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks again for having me.